This is Greg Laurie of A New Beginning, heard daily on Bible School Radio 91.3 KDKR Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and on 91.3 KYJC Commerce.
Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, how to avoid maybe the number one financial trap parents get stuck into. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I do have a line open if you'd like to call in with a question and or a comment. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357, 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send a question into the Ask Bob section for your questions and or comments. We'd love to hear from you. I love getting those emails and do answer those emails myself. So feel free to take advantage of that. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. So the question is, what is the main financial trap that parents fall into? You can come up with a laundry list of issues for everything from maybe not saving enough for retirement to getting into debt in your later years. There's a lot of things that you can get that can happen and become the number one financial trap. Now, nobody has dedicated or nobody has come out and said that this is the number one financial trap, but I'm calling it the number one financial trap because I believe it to be so. Nearly 70% of parents with kids 18 or older say they've sacrificed their own finances to help them. This is according to a new Bankrate report. And it's interesting because they do surveys, not just Bankrate, but they do surveys, studies, research studies on all kinds of things when it comes to money. And I have been in the business now for a little over 30 years and have been on the radio for over 20 years. And I got to tell you, this is the first survey or report that I've seen that talks about this very delicate situation when your son or your daughter, who's supposed to have gotten to the age where it makes sense to go ahead and move out, go on their own, start a life, start a career, that time of independence in their lives, and yet there's either staying or moving back into home. And it all can be so very innocent at first, and then can turn into a really tough situation. Here's some more statistics about this. About half parents, that is, are forking over emergency savings or delaying paying off debt for the sake of their children. And as the market turmoil creates a $7 trillion retirement dollar saving shortfall, 43% say supporting their adult kids has been draining their retirement funds. Footing the bill, the age at which respondents believe it's time to start paying their own way varies by the type of expense. Ballpark is somewhere between 20 and 22, and of course they take it and break it out with Gen Z and get their specific age, which is, by the way, at 22 on average. It says that regardless of how people think it's time to, or when people think it's time to cut off the kids, Bankrate says helping out shouldn't be seen as a blank check or an indefinite handout. And I've seen this so many times where their kids move back, and it turns out to be a situation, everybody's on the same page, and it's just going to be temporary. And it goes on and on and on. It goes, and there comes a point that you get to that it really is problematic now to move out. And you have to, you're in a situation now where you have to do some tough love to get your child to move out. So what do you do as a parent? You want to take care of your kids, no matter what age they are. And you're willing, if push comes to shove, you're willing to sacrifice. You're willing to delay retirement. You're willing to delay getting out of debt. When it really comes down to it, and I've seen this so many times, and it's somewhat of a helpless feeling, because it does get to a point where, boy, it's really nice having Johnny home. It's really nice that things worked out the way they did, and I'm sure that something will open up an opportunity for little Johnny to go out and get a job and move out and be on his own. But for right now, this is just such a great opportunity, and we're really loving it. And it goes to that, boy, I wish Johnny would find a job. Wish we could gently move him out, get him on his own, and it becomes a real dilemma. I put together a list of 6 things starting in high school. And of course, some of these things I really believe that your kids will benefit to begin with. But I think you start with the first one. I think one of the problems with your kids moving back is that they really don't know what the financial impact is. And maybe the emotional impact is as well, but especially the financial impact. And I think it's key, and I've always said this. I was probably, when I graduated from Baylor, and I grew up in Waco, and I never lived with my parents after I moved out for college. But I moved to Dallas to go into the business that I'm in right now. And I was so ill prepared for that from a financial maturity standpoint, and made tons of mistakes. Again, this is no criticism of my parents. I was blessed to have the parents that I had. We just really never talked about money. And that's just the way it was in my house. But if I had someone teach me how to live within my means, show me the costs, not just have an idea of what they cost, but show me the impact of renting the expensive apartment, and show me the impact for buying a brand new car and taking a payment, and just on and on and on, the costs. If I would have had somebody teach that to me in high school, and not only taught it to me, but not have just one conversation, to have continual conversations over what it costs to live out on your own. What does it mean to have an emergency fund? What does it mean to be in a situation where you have, something pop up, something break on your car, that new car you just bought, or whatever it is? What about saving? What about saving for retirement? I mean, if I would have had someone to teach me that, and that would have really hit home with me, I think that I would have been a lot different, because I made a lot of mistakes. I was telling someone earlier today that the reason that I had such an education with how money works is because I made a lot of mistakes. So fortunately, I walked away with good experience. Well, I said such great experiences, but experiences that I can convey and teach other people what not to do when it comes to money. But teaching your kids how to live within their means is number one. Number two, the impact, not just taking student loan debt out, but the impact of student loan debt. Because I think this is what happens. you want your kids to go to school. You feel like it's a great investment, and you kind of want to set it all up and do it with your eyes closed, so you don't really see what you're doing, but you know you're doing it, and then you forget to sit down and say, okay, you know, that living within your means talk and practice and discussions we've had all through high school. How are you going to fit in another $300 or $400 a month? What kind of income are you going to have? And I think that, and when the good news is, I think that students are really realistically looking into the cost and burden of student loan debt and saying, wait, you know what? We're going to do something different. I'm going to work for a semester or two, save some money up, and figure out and maybe go to community college for a couple of years and finish off at a public college. Maybe live at home. I know that just goes against what I'm talking about, but if there's a game plan, then in your child's just living at home, to live at home, to move when he or she graduates, it's kind of another story. But I think we missed that lesson of teaching them how to respond to student loan debt and how all that works, because I think at the end of the day we're maybe a little bit in that place where we're kind of disappointed in ourselves for we didn't save money for them. So you decide to load them up and go from there. How about giving them a runway, a full-blown action plan? And I've always liked this idea. Now, I've never had, this is something that I'm only drawing from experiences of other people. But I love this idea of saying, okay, you know what, Johnny, we're going to take an 8 to 10 month runway here. And we're going to do this and this and this and this and get you fully prepared, everything you need to do to be out on your own. And get input. We'll get to this in just a second. This is Bob Brooks, 1-877-913-5357. We're up against the break. Stick around. I'll be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org. At PastorChuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at PastorChuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show, 1-877-913-5357. We're talking about that situation that parents get stuck in where their kid moves back home. You got to take them in. Maybe some things didn't work out, and instead of making this a temporary situation, it starts to become a little bit more permanent, and things kind of go south. And you end up, as a parent, really flipping the bill for a lot of expenses that you are going to use for other scenarios given retirement or debt or whatever. So it's talking about building out a generous runway and having milestones along that runway. This is what you need to do, and this is a situation where you're looking to get a meaningful job, one that you can start out in, and maybe it's a stepping stone to another job, or maybe it's a situation where you know for a fact you can climb the corporate ladder, whatever it is. But it's a job that will pay for your living expenses and get them to and like I said, there comes a line that I think that you get to where it's really tough to get them and hold them accountable to getting things done. But that's it. That is one idea that I've seen work. Get a job, any job, and have them pay for some of the bills. So if you're going to live here, you're going to pay us, maybe $1,500 a month to live here. That probably would go over a little bit better than kicking them out. Here's one. Show them your financial plan and how this is affecting that plan. Maybe it could be an eye-opener. But bottom line is, help them or find someone to help them get a meaningful job, promote action, taking action, and accountability, and of course discourage anything like sleeping in and sitting around all day playing games. Tough situation to get yourself into. In fact, I was having a conversation with a client about a couple of weeks ago, and she was telling me everything that was going on in their life, and I was like, it's a tough one. But I really do believe that as we with our kids when they're in high school, we have such an invaluable time. It's an invaluable time to really start to educate them on how things work. 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open. Dear Bob, I heard a commercial for annuities that sounded too good to be true. They were touting 10% a year and a 25% bonus. What gives? Well, annuities are a hot item right now, and they are legitimately hot because they are the only, and let me say why I said this in a second, but hear me out. They're one of the only places that you can put money and get a very conservative, good rate of return on that money, like a CD. The problem, though, is that there are, if you go back to the 90s, there were, and count what was called the equity indexed annuity. There's several types of annuities, and what ends up happening is they all kind of do a different thing. So you start with your CD versus your annuity. A fixed annuity does kind of what a CD does. It pays a guaranteed fixed rate. The only difference between it is it's a little bit longer time period than most CDs, and the penalties for moving your money out of it are a lot stiffer than a CD. Then you have the fixed indexed annuity. You got the variable annuity. Like I said, you used to have the equity indexed annuity. That's not around anymore. And then there's all the confusion of how annuities work. Everything from I'm going to put my money into it, I'm going to lose 100% control. That is not true unless you annuitize it. And if you annuitize it, yes, you do lose control of the annuity in the form of guaranteed payments. But that's not what most people do. The problem is that most people don't understand how annuities work. They get them confused. Again, it's easy because if you really sat down and got an education on how annuities work, especially the fixed indexed annuity, it would probably take a few rounds of the same discussions to really get a grip on how it works. But let me give you just some general information about the marketing, because I think that the marketing, there's very little regulation when it comes to annuities. They are regulated by each state's insurance board, which would be the Texas, I believe they call it the State of Texas Insurance Board. And that's just not big enough to go to enforce the laws that are out on the books. But what ends up happening, and I've heard these claims many times on Saturday. If you want to go and listen to annuity marketing, listen to Saturday morning and afternoon radio on AM, any AM station, and these advisors have paid big money to talk you into annuities and talk about how great annuities are. And let me say this: annuities, for the right situation, are a great fit. As I said earlier, I would say why I thought they were great fits. I think they're a great replacement for bonds, which are a little bit of a risky bet right now. But definitely, it's tougher to find a higher rate of guaranteed return than you can find in a fixed annuity. That's some of the good things about it. The fixed index annuity's got some good things about it. The problem is that there's a lot of bad product that's on the market, and then you've got these marketing campaigns. So what ends up happening, and without, I'd rather you get the point than all the detail. So if you hear somebody tout these big returns that these annuities are getting, so that could be anywhere from 7 to 8 to 9 to 10%, and they're getting this bonus, say 25% bonus up front, it's not what you think it is. But you see, all you have to do is make that general statement, and which is true, but it's not exactly like you think. So said another way, you're not going to invest into an annuity for, let's say, 10 years or 8 years or 7 years, make 10% a year on your original principal, and that's going to compound. Then at the seventh year, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to with all that money, your principal plus that 7%, 8%, or 9% or 10% return, and move it without any problem. So if you've accumulated $500,000 by doing that, it's not like you're going to be able to take that $500,000 and move it someplace else, because it doesn't necessarily exist. Okay, so don't think that you've just discovered the most amazing product in the world, because it didn't work that. Oh, and you get that 25% bonus. So let's say you put $100,000 in, and you're going to get $25,000 up front. So now you have $125,000, and that's going to grow guaranteed to 7% per year for 7-8 years. Do you really think that insurance companies could actually do that? Well, they've got to make money. They do make money, and it's not because they're giving out incredible deals like that. So my first advice would be to be leery of anybody who markets that way, because it's a little bit I don't know what the word to use that you would use to describe it. It's not being completely upfront on what's happening here, because the implication is that it's working like a high level CD that's paying 7 or 8 or 9 or 10%. It's not like that. So if you're wondering what is getting 10% a year, if they're saying it's getting 10% a year, that means simply that if you looked at a fixed indexed annuity and you said part of it's a growth account and part of it's an income account, it applies to the income account and not to the growth account. And if we had time to talk about this and go over it, and we were in person because it would be easier to show you, you would see that it doesn't work that way, and that it is a little bit, I don't know if misleading was the word that I was. Now, whether that's unintentional or intentional is anybody's call. It is a little bit misleading to leave that thought in someone's head that all I got to do is put this money in this annuity. And you're going to, and I'm telling you, you'll hear tons and tons and tons of marketing for annuities because of all the uncertainty that is in the market. And this is when annuities really do well, is when risk is high. And unfortunately, it's kind of one of these things where I just want to be safe. I want to know I'm going to hit my retirement. Well, this annuity will do all that for you. Great. Tell me where to sign up. And they do it without asking questions. So just something to keep in mind. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.